All right, House of Payne fans. Now, as you know, I did, what was it, like a 30-minute video based on the 90-second clip we got on Monday, I believe, in regards to Jasmine's plans to take a hiatus. I don't want to say quit, but take a hiatus from college. And I said, you know what, there's more that I wanted to dive into. But, you know, for one, 30 minutes was more than enough for the video. Even though I had more to say, I thought it would only be fair if I could actually go ahead and watch the full episode for full context, and hopefully that will give me more to really talk about. Unfortunately, it really didn't. Now, don't let that statement make you think I dislike the episode. I actually love this episode a lot. In some ways, I actually liked it a bit more than last week. It's just that I was a bit disappointed. This episode was good, but I think it was one step away from being great. So, in terms of a score, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. What could have made it a 10? I think the thing that really held the episode back, or the one thing that held it back, instead of spending so much time with Jasmine's antics in terms of describing like pork and bacon, basically the time that was spent, or should I say, I'm going to be honest here, the time that was wasted on Jasmine critiquing her family's eating habits, I think that should have been taken out. I mean, sure, you could have had one little gag, a one and done line or two. But I would have rather the dinner scene be longer. That way we actually got more conversation about her decision about college. Now, look, I know these episodes are 20 minutes. They can only do so much. And also, I don't want to be too harsh on this episode, because who's to say that there won't be follow-up and an actual storyline about Jasmine not being in college. I mean, some fans speculate that, well, maybe Jasmine not being in college means that China Ann will pop up in more episodes. That is a good possibility. I don't know for certain, but it does make sense. However, when it comes to the conversation about her leaving school, that clip pretty much told us everything we needed to know. The only thing missing was Malik's reaction and being supportive of his sister. And we really didn't get much else from CJ, which I felt was very disappointing. Now, I'll go ahead and talk about the episode as a whole. But like I said, I gave a freaking 30-minute video to you all on Monday. And, or was it Tuesday? Tuesday, basically. Yeah, Tuesday. And that pretty much summed up a lot of my thoughts on Jasmine's decision. So I'll only talk about it a little bit in this actual review. So again, Season 12, Episode 2, just Payne Trippin. And also, we're about to hit 250,000 subscribers. I know we're about a little over 6,000 subscribers away. So if you're watching this video, hit subscribe, please. It really does help out. All right. So I'll talk about the Calvin stuff first. So Calvin, we actually get to see Christian, who is a bit older. I was a bit shocked. I think it was behind the scenes when I saw Christian, the actor, that's playing Christian. But then I'm like, oh, wow. Because somebody reminded me, well, Jeremy, we know House of Payne, the time moves a lot different and a lot faster than the other Tyler Perry shows. To an extent, so does assisted living. And yeah, I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, in season 9, we saw Christian still as like a toddler, Ella holding his hand, and he was walking around. He's like a little toddler. Now all of a sudden he had a growth spurt. I don't mind it. I mean, it's a lot more believable than, say, little Nicky from the Fresh Prince going from like a literal baby, to like a 6-year-old or 7-year-old. They're playing a game. I think Calvin's the one who's really playing the game. Christian's watching, and Miranda comes in. And the B storyline of the episode was the fact that Miranda has an opportunity to become vice president of marketing for the realtor company she works for. but it's located in Houston, Texas. And Calvin's in his feelings about it because that could take his son 800 miles away from him. But the thing is, and look, I don't want to, drag Laura because she wasn't even in the episode. But yet again, the chemistry between these two, it's just far exceeds Calvin and Laura. Makes a lot of sense. These two were married for a while. They've known each other longer. And it was sweet to see Calvin support Miranda's, possible promotion until it was revealed about I have to go to Houston and take our son with me. And it was one of those situations where it didn't sound selfish. I understood completely where Miranda was coming from. Yes, Calvin had valid reason, like, you're taking my son 800 miles from me. He needs to have both his parents in his life. But Miranda literally bodied Calvin. And it wasn't about one being right, one being wrong. I saw both sides of the situation. But she made a valid point. Calvin, your whole life is here in Atlanta. You're about to start a new life with Laura. You've moved on. I still haven't. Where's my new chapter, my new beginning? And I'm not just doing this for me. It's the best for our son because it will allow me to make more money, be able to, do better in terms of raising our son financially. I'm not saying Calvin's selfish. Like I said, I can see both sides, and I'm not saying Miranda's selfish, but I honestly think moving would have been the best thing. Yes, in terms of long distance co-parenting, I understand it. Miranda does make a good point. It happens. These things happen. It's just like when Calvin was telling his mom, I think last season, about how, divorce in your generation was taboo, but nowadays that's just how it works. And I think Calvin should have been more understanding. Now, by the end of the episode, he does come around. Miranda comes back, I think, when Calvin is reading a bedtime story to his son, but he's already knocked out. And she reveals that she didn't take the job in Houston, even though Calvin was like, no, I want to support you on this. But Miranda did say that, our son deserves to have his amazing dad in his life. And it's the fact that she did negotiate a raise with her current position, but it's not as high as the vice president position would have been. And that's pretty much it for that storyline. I thought it was pretty solid. It really was. Now back to the main storyline, and I'll just, and not to half-ass it, but like I said, I did a 30-minute video on the subject already, but just talk about the highlights. Jasmine and Malik, just their dynamic is still there. I love seeing them interact, but basically the episode starts off, Malik is on the computer, looking at some bars in the area that he wants to check out with his sister. CJ is just shocked, going to, what happened to arcades and bowling alleys and whatnot? It's like, Dad, we're in our 20s, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure CJ was talking to Curtis about this in like season 10. And I'm like, their ages make no sense, but it is confirmed that they are in their 20s. But, it turns out that Jasmine is pretty much booked between hanging out with her classmates, her friends, and, going to places with their professor in groups. So Malik is a bit taken aback by this because here we are with, him going, oh, Dad, don't worry, I know my sister. To, oh, wow, okay, I don't know who this person is. So she does agree to go out tomorrow night to go-kart racing, which is funny because CJ mentioned, why don't y'all do some of the stuff y'all used to do? But Malik's like, no, we're adults. We're going to do this and that. But then she opted to do the go-kart racing. So it turns out that the professor, his name is Louis. His first name is Louis. He doesn't mind his students calling him that. He's 32 years old. He's a photographer for International Geographic. Remember, a lot of TV shows change the name of well-established, well-known companies for the sake of not paying royalties and stuff. So yeah, International Geographic. And he has a thing about open, honest communication. So, later on in the episode, or the next morning, CJ made breakfast, but Jasmine skips it because of the fact that, well, she doesn't eat pork. based on the influence of her professor. And she kind of does that thing that isn't uncommon in show moments like this, where, if a person becomes quote unquote enlightened, whether it's because they found God or they adopted a new religious practice, a new political affiliation, or, oh, I've gone vegan, they want to kind of chastise those who don't live the same life. And it's like, you were scarfing down double cheeseburgers with the rest of us 2 days ago. Don't act like you're better than us. I'm surprised that CJ let her get away with calling, it's just ignorance. You all eating that pork that's killing you. And it's like, if you don't get your little ass out of here. But yeah, she leaves. And from there we get Ella, Curtis, and Malik. I don't know why. I just love this scene. It really was good. Malik is over there in the kitchen talking with them, and Ella's making them sandwiches and asking about Jasmine. But it's like, hey, she's my own sister. We live in the same house, but I haven't seen her that much either. She's been hanging out with college friends and a professor, and Curtis seems relatively chill about the whole thing. Look, Jasmine is an adult now, so she ain't going to be into the same stuff she used to. But then CJ comes in asking the same thing. Y'all seen Jasmine? So then the conversation shifts over to the professor, who they decide to invite over to dinner. So I know originally people are like, oh, well, after watching that clip, I bet Jasmine invited the professor over to support her decision to quit school. And then, of course, we get a pretty lengthy scene of Ella preparing dinner over at CJ's house because, Ella said she would cook. Also, yeah, when she was making the sandwiches for the guys, they all asked for the bread to be toasted. And, Ella was like, toasted, coming right up. But then she never toasted. I thought that was pretty funny. Even more to, like, showcase how adult the kids are. Just that moment of, like, Ella bringing Curtis and Malik, beer bottles, I thought was pretty interesting because, growing up watching, Malik and Jasmine as kids to now, being handed beer by their auntie Ella, I thought that was a pretty, just a little thing I did like because it shows that, yeah, these kids are grown now. But, of course, the funniest part of this interaction was Curtis, who said, oh, Jazzy's grown up. She ain't, like she was when she was younger. But the moment it was mentioned she doesn't eat pork/bacon anymore, that's when, his ears perked up like, whoa, what'd you say? No, we need to talk to this professor. So, later on, Ella's fixing dinner, but then Jasmine comes in there and, just goes on about, not eating pork and, this, that, and the third. And, like I said earlier, people like this can be really annoying. Look, everybody is free to pursue their own individual life choices. But the thing is, when you decide to either try to force your beliefs on other people or speak in a condescending way because other people are not living the way you live or make the decisions you do, that's when it becomes a problem. Also, when I was in college, that was something I just did not like about, and no shade and oh my gosh, it makes sense because Jasmine is a psychology major. When psychology majors take like one introductory level course and then all of a sudden they think they can diagnose people, which I found so freaking annoying. Which was funny because I know a couple like random people like I interacted with at some point on campus, specifically girls, but being a communications major, public relation, advertising, I knew of some mental tricks that can like flip it back on them by using certain buzzwords and whatnot. So yeah, it was like, yo, just because you learned a few big, I don't even want to say 20, just because you learned a few big $7 words doesn't mean you can like identify somebody based on, like little things from one conversation. If you're more skilled, then yes, but just don't. But I love what Ella said because of the fact that she told Jasmine, look, I don't know what this thing is between you and your professor. And Ella could see that, there was something there. And I don't want to say there was a relationship, but you could tell that the professor has an influence over Jasmine. And there might be something of a crush from her end there. From her end. But the bomb that she dropped was basically, look, I want to make sure you're in your 20s. This is the time in a person's life when, they're trying to find themselves, make certain decisions that form and shape them into the people they eventually fully grow up into being, basically when you're in your 30s. But I want to make sure you're making these choices because you want to make them, not because of someone else's influence on you, which again, I felt was a very, very wise thing to say. So dinner happens. Louis comes over, introduces himself. Curtis passed him down. He doesn't know him and everything. And it's revealed that he's 32. He's been teaching for 5 years. Funny thing is, when Ella is, making the dinner, she actually did, setting the table, she actually did make a rack of ribs for her husband. And you could see the look on Louis' face when he sees it. I thought he was going to say something, but he didn't. Or Jasmine, I thought, Jasmine was going to say something. But I did appreciate the fact that Ella did prepare the food despite Jasmine being like, because she even went so far as to say, well, maybe you should get that rack of ribs to Uncle Curtis so he doesn't show up, because you know how he doesn't have a filter and he'll say something to embarrass me. But, Ella said, look, your Uncle Curtis is your Uncle Curtis. Even if I ask him not to do something, he has a mind of his own. So, she didn't want to be embarrassed, which again indicates that she probably does have some sort of attraction to the professor. Now, long story short, they're about to pray. And like I said, the clip itself, pretty much that was the whole scene. She just drops the bomb of wanting to quit school. CJ isn't for it and doesn't appreciate the professor, backing up Jasmine's decision. And she reveals, I want to travel the world and, I want to study photography, which, strangely enough, remember the professor, International Geographic. Now the professor is all for his students being well-rounded, critical thinkers, being open-minded. So, he supports Jasmine's decision. But the thing is, then Malik chimes in about how he's sorry for, the way he's been acting. But in reality, the only time he acted a certain way was when he came into the kitchen. Sorry, something fell across the room. When he came to the kitchen and he didn't greet the professor, he just said, yeah, what's up? And then sat down. So I don't really understand why Malik had apologized there. And we don't really get any follow-up from CJ. He just kind of sits there as Jasmine makes this very critical life decision. So let me put it this way. Like I said in my other video, yeah, college isn't for everyone. But I do think that I was reading the comments on my video and somebody made a good point. They were like, it's not uncommon for students who weren't really exposed to a lot during middle and high school to make the decision to want to leave college, as opposed to someone who's had, jobs or internships or, went to like career fairs and whatnot. This is a major life decision. And I feel like based on this professor's influence on Jasmine and the way she carried herself in this episode, this truly feels like a knee-jerk reaction. But then again, it doesn't help that there are a lot of things we just don't know. How far into her degree, how far into the degree is Jasmine? At what point of the semester is she currently in? I mean, does she plan on finishing her current semester and then leaving school? When she talks about traveling the world and whatnot, and this isn't to like diminish her or, put down her ideas, but okay, you say you want to take a hiatus. So if you find out what your passion is, will you go back to school and pursue a degree in that passion? I mean, there are so many things that I wish we explored a bit more. I mean, this professor, he said he wanted to become a lawyer to give, black people a second chance, those who trip over their feet. But he, changed his mind and decided to pursue teaching. He said there was too much red tape when it came to being a lawyer. So he opted to become, an educator in order to instill, knowledge in the minds of people instead. And it's true, people change their majors and whatnot. But I do feel like we needed a bit more. And this is from someone who went to college and worked at a college, behind the scenes, helping people get through their degrees, register for classes and whatnot. So, is Jasmine early in her degree where I don't know about y'all, but I know a Liberty and a bunch of other colleges around here. So I'm assuming a lot of colleges, depending on if you transferred in college credit, more often than not, like the first 2 years of your degree will mostly be spent taking the fundamental classes like math, English, science, and introductory level courses. And if you're lucky, you might take a handful of the majors or classes related to your selected major. So, I mean, how far has Jasmine gotten to her degree? I mean, could she at least get to like the associate's level? Hey, I feel like there could have been more compromise here. Like I said, there's a lot of key information we don't know about Jasmine's college career so far. And I feel like there should have been at least some sort of compromise instead of you just leaving school. Okay, Jazzy, you want to travel the world and whatnot. So what's going on with that? Like, does your school not have a study abroad program? Does your school have, if let's say you do decide to pursue photography, does your school have photography courses? Like, could you do like photography 101? Try it out, because it just feels like she's winging it, which isn't completely bad, because sometimes when you wing it, you fly a bit crooked, but you might eventually land on something that's meant for you. And I do feel like, some time needed to be spent on this conversation a bit more. But like I said, maybe, just maybe, we'll learn more about it as the season goes forward. I really hope so, because there really is a lot I wanted this episode to touch base on. At the core, what was it about? The importance of making decisions and forming your own thoughts and opinions, as opposed to only changing because somebody you admire influenced you. College isn't for everyone. And that's about it. Yeah, I was a bit disappointed. So, yeah, that's why I give it a 9 out of 10. It had potential. Also, somebody was like, yo, do you think the professor and Jasmine are, got something going on? What if one of the and look, this might be a bit morbid, but what if one of the reasons the professor supports Jasmine's decision to quit school is due to the fact that they do have a kind of thing going on, or an attraction, but school policy, professors can't date students. So if Jasmine is no longer a student, then they could possibly see each other. Ruh-roh. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.